Welcome back everyone, Merry Christmas. Today I will be teaching you guys how to cast, flip, and skip with the baitcaster. There's some secret techniques in here that nobody teaches, so stay tuned and thanks for watching. It is a beautiful winter day, and as you can see, we've got some ice. Look at that, dude. Oh man. I don't know. We don't usually get ice here in North Carolina, so I don't know how I feel about that. Anyways, today I will be teaching you guys how to cast a baitcaster. How to cast, skip, and flip with a baitcaster. Now, first of all, let's talk about casting. So, there's a few things on your baitcaster that kind of affects how you would cast. Now, first of all, there's a little spinny thing under the drag star. That's your tension knob. It basically controls how loose and how tight your spool is going to be. So, when you have a heavier lure, you will want your tension knob tighter, and with the looser, like with the lighter lure, you will want it looser. Because if you have a heavy lure and your tension knob's too loose, it's gonna cause like overspin of your spool, and it's gonna backlash. And if your tension knob is too tight, you're not gonna be able to cast far. So that's that. We'll come back to that. Here we have the brakes. The brakes are really straightforward. They act as brakes on your spool. They basically slow down your spool as you cast, so it prevents backlashes. Most reels have a magnetic spool. I'll show you real quick. Or maybe I should. As you can see right there, there's a few little magnets as you turn it up. I don't know if you can see that, but it gets closer to the spool itself, making it has more effect on the spool. Like the higher your brakes are, the less likely you're gonna backlash, because it's gonna slow down your spool by a lot when you cast. But you're not gonna be able to cast far. Now let's talk about how you would set this up. So first of all, let's talk about the brakes. So I would recommend, if you never casted a baitcaster before, I would put it on 7 or 8, as you can see right there. You could turn it all the way up, I guess, but it's really just going to limit your casting distance, and it's going to have the same effect as your brakes are 8 or 7. So again, if you never casted before, turn your brakes on 7 or 8, and as you get more used to a baitcaster, you could turn it down. I usually put my brakes on 2.5. So that's where I would put mine. I do have, as you can see, a multi-setting braking system. So I have internal brakes. With normal reels, like the one I have over there, I'm going to put my brakes on 4 or 3. You can, it's really just personal preference. A lot of people choose to put it on 6. Doesn't really matter. Before we talk about the tension knob, something to mention is that I would recommend a really heavy lure. No, not really heavy, but like a heavy lure when you cast. When you first start learning to cast, I made this mistake when I first learned. I had a 1/4 ounce jerkbait. It's a 1/4 ounce is a good weight. You're gonna be fine with that, but I'm just saying it's gonna be much easier if you cast with a heavy lure like a lipless or a spoon. Here I have a big spoon. So now let's talk about the tension knob. You reel your bait all the way up like that. And what you want to do is you want to turn your tension knob all the way up, all the way. Now, if you click the button, it's not going to fall. If it does fall, that means your lure is too heavy for your reel, and you probably shouldn't do that. It's either going to damage your reel or it's going to limit your casting distance and accuracy. So when you do click the button, it's not supposed to fall. So how you tune this is to slowly click it down until it falls slowly, like that. As you can see, when it falls in the water, it's going to slowly fall it's a bit too tight. Slowly fall, and I'm not gonna get a backlash. Look at that. Now, I like to turn it down, even after like it slowly falls. I like to turn it down 1 or 2 more clicks. You don't have to do that. You can cast perfectly fine. This way, it's just gonna cast further if you turn it down, and it's not really gonna backlash. Now let's talk about what you need to do to cast. So you click the button with the middle section of your thumb, like that, and you hold the spool itself with the top of your thumb, like that. You click it and you hold it. So when you let go of your thumb, it's just gonna fall. So a lot of people say it's much more easy to cast by your side when you're first casting. I would honestly agree to that. When I first started learning, it was much easier because like a baitcaster has a much more different release as a spinning reel, and it wouldn't be too ideal if you just straight up casted overhead because it might backlash really bad. But what you want to do is you click the reel, right? Cast lightly as first. Now, it's also good to mention that make sure there's no trees around you or above you so you don't cast into a tree and lose your lure. But at first, just have the leader doesn't really matter when you're first casting. You'll slowly, honestly, I don't have a specific leader that I want. I just reel it back like that and I just cast. So you want light casts at first, and you could slowly, and you could slowly work your way up, and eventually you could cast with like full strength. So, eventually you're gonna want like a really smooth, almost like a circular motion of your lure and cast, but like that. But when you first start, that really doesn't matter. All you need to do is just swing your rod back. Make sure you use 2 hands. It's much more easier, trust me. And you just swing it forward. It's really straightforward. Very straightforward. You just back, swing it forward. There you go. Now, after you've really mastered casting to the side and you could get this almost circular motion, start trying to do overhead casts. It's going to be much more difficult. There's, a lot of people say you need to release at like a specific angle. I really don't think there's like a specific angle. You just really have to try it out yourself and just find out where to cast. It's just, there's not a specific number for it. You just have to learn how to cast overhead like that. Now, one more thing to mention is that I like to turn my brakes up when it's really windy outside, because wind can really affect how you cast your lure. If you cast against the wind, it's gonna really slow down the lure. And when you cast with the wind, you're gonna cast really far, but again, that's gonna make your spool spin much faster. So I would turn my brakes like 1 or 2 clicks up when there's really high winds. So you just really have to practice with casting, and eventually you'll get used to it. Now let's talk about another technique with casting. Say you see that rock right there, the whatever. Say you want a quick short cast and you want to add it as an angle so that you won't hit the rock. Now you could just do that and cast like that, but there's a much quicker way, and it's called flipping. So it's like that, just like that. So I'm actually gonna use this one. So again, you want to flip when it's short, quick casts into a specific spot. Like if there's a log right there, I would just flip it right there, So what you want is, it's going to be the exact same setup. You're going to have your brakes and your tension knob set just like when you're casting. What you want is, it kind of varies depending on your personal preferences. Some people make the bait halfway of the rod. I like to put it about right there, about where the spool is. So basically what you do is you hold the lure by the end, you take it down with the rod. My tip is going down as well. And basically you let go of your hand and you just swing your rod like that. It's quite simple and it's pretty easy. So something I like to do is when I'm on a bank, you know how if you're on a boat, you're gonna have a bit like you're gonna be slightly above the water. That's why a lot of people do that. So when you're on the bank, if you want to cast further, I would recommend bringing your rod to the side so you could like have a better range of motion to make it cast further. So again, you hold the lure, you click the bait, you let it back to the side, you let go right there. You let go first and then you just swing your rod like that. It goes pretty far. So one thing I need to say that I feel like a lot of people don't say is that when you're holding onto the lure, always if you have a soft plastic like a jig, always hold on to the back so you don't hook yourself, you know? You always hold on to the back. I've made this mistake many times and it's honestly concerning how a lot of other people don't talk about it. Say you have a treble hook lure. You need to let go first. You need to let go first before you swing the rod. It's just important because say if you just hold on to the end and you swing before you let go, because you know the thinking is, and you could do this on a jig, but you just have to hold the soft plastic behind. The rod tip, when you just swing your rod first, the rod tip has more bend. And it's gonna go further, right? True, but an important thing is that you're gonna hook your hand. You're gonna scratch your hand when you kind of flip first before you let go. So especially when you use a treble hook bait, make sure to let go first and then flip. Trust me, I've hooked myself many times like that, especially with treble hook baits, even with soft plastic sometimes. You just gotta be careful. Now let's say you've already mastered casting overhand and to the side, you mastered flipping, and you want to learn a new technique. Now, skipping is what I feel like it's the hardest technique really on a baitcaster because, you know, the backlashes and stuff, but it's relatively easy once you actually learn it. Now, when you skip, I feel like it's really important to take a day off of fishing. Just go to your local pond or lake and just practice skipping, because that's going to help you a lot. And it's much more difficult. You know, you want to practice. That's really important. But anyways, first of all, let's talk about what lures you can actually skip. By the way, look at that jig trailer. I was planning to make a video on experimenting the jig trailers, like different, like a finesse worm and a senko and a craw, but I decided to push it back to spring because winter here just absolutely sucks and I just can't catch anything. So if you want to see that though, make sure to stay tuned because that's going to be coming out during the spring. Anyways, anything with really like a soft plastic could skip really well, like a chatterbait, a jig, a chatterbait, a Texas rig. It's harder to skip with the Texas rig if you don't have the weight pegged, because the weight's just gonna fall up and down the line, and that's honestly harder to skip, but it's still all right. You know, swim baits, those are, and honestly anything with soft plastics, they just skip really well. You can't really skip any hard baits, I guess. You know, you could skip a frog and that, but you can't skip like crankbaits. So what you gotta do is say you can cast perfectly fine. You could cast with your brakes on 0, right? You don't need any brakes. You could cast perfectly fine, just like that. If you never skipped before, I would still recommend turning your brakes back up. I know it's really painful. when you feel like you've mastered something and you just have to go back from the beginning. But honestly, I would recommend turning your brakes back up. It's gonna help you a lot. That's just how it is. So another trick I've seen some people do is you cast out a good amount of line like that. You take those tape where it has like fabric. It's sort of like fabric, so it doesn't like rip. You just stick it across the spool. So basically you only have like a bit of line out. Enough, make sure it's enough for you to skip, but like don't make it too much, because if you do somehow backlash and you can't get the backlash out, you could just pull it out, or you could just cut it to where the tape is and it won't backlash your whole entire reel. Let's talk about when you want to skip. So say you have a overhang or you have a dock and you want to really get in there, that's when you would skip your lure. Now let's talk about how you skip. So it's a more difficult technique, but once you master it, it's fun. When you get a good skip, it's always fun. So what you got to do is so what you want eventually is you want to have that beautiful circular motion, and you want the bait to be angled in a really close, like when you release the bait, it's going to be a close angle to the water, so it skips across the water. What you want right now is you want to open water, so don't try to skip under trees and docks when you're first starting. It's not going to help you. So just make sure it's open water. And what you want to do is you want to get a feel of what it's like skipping with the baitcaster. Now, here I have a technique that not many other people teach. And so basically it's you reel your lure really close to the tip of your rod, right? So basically you click the spool, you make sure your rod tip is really close to the water, and you just pull it back, you just skip it straight across the water like that. It's really easy way to get the feeling of skipping. You can't really skip super far. Like if there's a dock over there and I'm here on the bank, I can't really use this way to skip all the way here, all the way there. So, but it's a really good way of getting to know the feeling of what it's like to skip. So again, make sure there's a really short leader, click the reel, make the rod tip really close to the water, and just do that. Once you do that a few times and you kind of get used to the feeling of skipping, darn it, you could start, trying to skip like the normal way. So you want to, I wouldn't say, it kind of depends how close you are to the water. I wouldn't recommend a super long leader. It's definitely more difficult to control, and the angle of release is going to be much harder. So just have like a 1 foot, 1.5, 2 foot leader. What you want to do is you want to have that circular motion, like casting, just like that. So try to aim at a specific spot you're going to skip with. For example, I'm going to skip right in front of that big rock. So first of all, I'm going to do the technique where I just get the feeling of skipping a few times, and then I'm just going to cast there a few times, just like that. Just cast there a few times, just get the feeling, and then you could try to skip. So there's not really a technique where I can tell you, like there's not an angle of release where I just tell you and you just get it. You really just have to learn it yourself. So, all you have to do is try to make sure when you release, it's at a close angle to the water, so it's gonna glide across the water and you won't get a backlash. And it's fine if you get a backlash. That's perfectly okay. Trust me, every single pro out there, before they became a pro, they backlashed while skipping, and everybody at some point backlashes while skipping. It's just how it is, and it's perfectly fine. So again, you want to have that circular swing motion, and you want to let go of your lure when it's really close to the water. So it's going to be like that. Oh, that's a bad one. like that. You don't have to have too much skips. You know, a lot of times if you're skipping under docks and stuff and tubes, they're not going to sit super deep, because what they want to do is they want to, you know, bass want to ambush prey. So you really don't have to get like a really like long skip. They're cool, you know, I love like really long skips, but you don't have to have like 25 skips to catch a fish. All you really need is that 6 or 5 to get it under the dock where the bass are. So again, you just have to practice over. You could try the tape method so you don't backlash. And also, if you have a braided reel, try to use that, because braid is much less, I feel like it's easier to get the backlash out, and you won't backlash as easy, but just practice. That was beautiful. Oh man. Another tip on what lures you should use while skipping is just like when we talk about casting, try to use a heavier lure like a jig or a chatterbait. You know, it's gonna help you develop the skill first, and then you can move down to like a Texas rig and other stuff like that. But you really just have to practice with skipping. There's not really like a shortcut to it. I feel like that's how I learned it. I took a day off and I just went under a tree and I just skipped for the whole entire day. That's gonna really help you out. So after you kind of mastered it, you know, tune your brakes back down, tune it down to like how you would usually have it. And with that, you really just mastered the 3, what I think is the 3 most important techniques that you can have with the baitcaster. Now, this is the end of the tutorial video. If you liked it, leave a like and comment down below what you want to see next. Thanks again for watching.